Hello and welcome to the world famous Adventures Club here in Los Angeles. We are a 100-year-old club that celebrates those who venture off the beaten path. My name is Lance Miller. I am member 1,222. I'm a member of the board of directors, and it's my pleasure to be your host tonight and bring to you Sachi Cunningham. And Sachi is a true adventurer off the beaten path. She is a world-renowned photographer, cinematographer, and videographer. She's made over 200 movies, which includes movies in Afghanistan, documentaries chronicling the first democratically elected president. She's done documentaries on sex trafficking in Dubai. She's traveled around the world a number of times. She's traveled from Los Angeles down the entire west coast of North and South America to the tip of Chile. But tonight we're going to be talking about her adventures as a big wave surf photographer. She's one of the preeminent surfing photographers and videographers in the world. Sachi, welcome to the Adventures Club.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming.
And with that, Sachi's actually been featured not only in the New York Times, LA Times, San Francisco Chronicle, but she's been featured on the Today Show. And to get 5 minutes on the Today Show is like getting 2 hours on any other medium. But we're going to actually start with introducing their audience to you with your Today Show clip. So you want to introduce that, or?
Sure. Yeah. This was came about because there's an article in my alma mater, Brown University, about my water photography, and one of the Today Show producers is married to a Brown alumni. Saw the article, and there was actually a delay because there was the Ukraine war, and then the New York Times article came out, and I got on the Today Show. So I think it just gives a good summary of a very long and windy road that is my life.
Okay, we're going to get a 4-minute vignette of your life here.
It's just this enormous force of life that is so much bigger than you, because your breath is just taken away by this beauty. I mean, to me, it's beautiful. It's not scary most of the time.
Photographer Sachi Cunningham is a little over 5 feet tall, but she boldly swims into waves almost 10 times her size.
Just awe-inspiring.
Growing up in Pittsburgh, Sachi was a competitive swimmer and played water polo at Brown University. Her second love was always her camera.
I had no idea that there was a thing called water photography, and I saw this guy in the wave with a camera. I was just like, what? That's a thing? I could do that.
Sachi's first job was teaching English in Japan, but her sights were always out to sea, and that's when she took the plunge and bought an underwater camera.
But it was a lot of money, $6,000 I saved to buy this setup that I had never shot a frame in my life in the water. But I knew once I bought it and I took it out that I had made the right choice, absolutely.
There's something about swimming in the ocean, she says, that kept her afloat during those turbulent times in her life, from losing her mother to cancer and then being diagnosed with manic depression.
It was just about being in this high-pressure environment at an Ivy League university, and then realized that was the fuse that I needed to go crazy. And I think that had I not been swimming 6 days a week for 2 hours every day, I have no idea what I would have turned out like.
Bobbing in icy water with a 20-pound camera, she navigates 4-story waves, unpredictable currents, and the occasional shark to get shots other photographers might miss her boat. Most of the time here at Mavericks in Northern California, one of the most legendary and dangerous surf spots on Earth. And the place she found the inspiration for her documentary, SheChange, in 2014.
There's about a dozen women from around the world that were really the only women at the time that were surfing waves, and it was amazing. It was electric.
She built a sisterhood one wave at a time. With 4 of the best female big wave writers and her quest for equity and equal pay in the sport.
And to just be in the lineup with your peers all of a sudden and realizing that you're a group that could really make changes in the sport was so exciting.
2 years after she began filming the documentary, she faced a challenge even bigger in the waves. She was battling the same cancer her mother died from. Again, she found solace in the sea.
I went through chemo, and during that whole process, I was still sitting out there and shooting. It's about knowing that those forces that are out of your control are there that could kill you. You have to learn how to turn that scary thing into something beautiful and to make it your own and to survive it. And that's exactly what I had to do in order to go through my own cancer experience.
Today, Sachi is cancer-free, and she says still on the ride of her life, living history with her fearless female surfers.
You know, I like the challenge. There's the physical challenge, the mental challenge, the spiritual challenge, and growth in all those areas that translate out of the water into every aspect of my life.
Let's just take it at that at this point. That was about a 5-minute video in 2.5 minutes. Part of the adventure of the AV system here at the Adventures Club. But I think you get an idea of, just from that, of some of the territory that Sachi ventures into. And you're going out in some of the roughest, most dangerous water in the world, and other people are out there in boats, they're out there on surfboards, you're out there in a wetsuit and a pair of flippers. So let's actually just go back. I look to look at how did we get here today. And we're all faced with, you know, that fork in the road where we come to a moment where we have to make a decision. Do we go left? Do we go right? And you've made a number of decisions to step off the beaten path and to forge your own. And there had to be a point someplace where you said, I'm interested in water photography, and then moved into surfing. So let's actually look at, what was your first entry into filming in the water?
So my first, well, it actually, I can thank my dad who's here. I grew up surfing. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You know, those big waves on the Three Rivers there. And my parents are both from Southern California, so we would come to the beaches here, Capistrano Beach specifically, in the summers for 2 weeks. So I had an exposure to the waves and was in love with them. I also developed an interest in photography, and when I was in high school, my dad called me down because on television, just there happened to be a documentary, you know, call on down, Sachi, I think you might be interested in this. And it was a documentary about Aaron Chang, who's a water photographer from San Diego. And you know, this is before social media, and as a Pittsburgher, I didn't know about water surf photography, but I knew I loved swimming in the waves, and I knew I loved taking photos, so it was just all the light bulbs went off, and you know, the wave surf still wasn't up in Pittsburgh, so as soon as I had any agency, after I graduated from college, my first job out of college was teaching English in Japan. And so I saved money there to buy a camera. I looked on the masthead of the surf magazines there and tracked down someone who would let me follow them along and apprentice, and I found out from them where to get a water housing, because the water housings still you have for DSLRs, most of them are still just custom built for each camera. So turns out Japan has a lot of great cameras. So back then it was film, and I bought my first camera and had my first water housing made. I shot my first frames in Japan. There's a really great island in the south of Japan that I practiced in, Tanegashima, even though I probably shouldn't give that away. And it was the right choice. It was electric. I was absolutely in love, and I had also saved up after my time in Japan. I actually spent 2 years there, but I traveled from Japan to 14 different countries in East and Southeast Asia. I'm half Japanese, so I was also interested in understanding what this whole Asian American umbrella was about. And along those travels, you know, back then you had to mail away for these little pamphlets. I think they were called Surf Report. Are there surfers in here? They were little paper pamphlets that you got in the mail, like they would say where to go with a surf spot. So I got a bunch of those for all of the different countries, and my last stop was Indonesia, and that's where I got just absolutely incredible waves and incredible surfers combined, and I knew that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life.
Wow. Now, there's a lot of things you can do with underwater photography, but in this story you're describing, you looked in surf magazines to found a photographer who shot surfers. What was your connection to the surfers? Because there's a lot of things you can do other than shoot surfers.
Yeah, I mean, I've made this career of kind of staying on the surface of the water. That's kind of my range. And excuse me. And yeah, you're right. I didn't know very many surfers. I wasn't really, I didn't grow up in Southern California or any surf spots, so I didn't have wasn't part of the boys club that was surfing back then, and so. Simultaneously, though, I got surf magazines mailed to Pittsburgh, so I was keeping up. I knew what was happening and who people were, and I also knew that I didn't see any women in those magazines. And so when I had a camera and I had the ability to do so, I sought out women who were surfing because I thought that having images of women out there would encourage other women.
Now that's a major part of our story and part of the adventure. And with this, you wind up getting a job with San Francisco State. And so you wind up in San Francisco. And one of the things we discussed, and we spent a lot of time talking about this before the interview, but we're talking about the adventure outside your back door. Because a lot of times, and a lot of people in this club will take off around the world. We heard that as, coming back and living for adventure. But you've got an adventure right outside your back door that you can sleep in your bed at night and walk out and have some of the roughest surfing locations in the world right at your fingertips. But so you're doing Indonesia, you're going around. What was your connection when you you start going to Maverick and you're doing the Ocean Beach, I believe it is, right outside of the San Francisco Bay, which is some of the roughest water you can surf on. And what was your inspiration to go, I'm going to go out in this rough water, and as you know, you find a female surfer to go out with?
Yeah, we have a slide here that I'd like to actually go to the family slides, because you asked what my inspiration was, and yeah, so that's my grandmother, Kyoko Yoshioka, what some people call adventurers, other people call immigrants. And they all have amazing adventure stories. And she was born in Santa Monica, and her mother died when she was young. And so she probably from the same cancer my mom had and I had. And she was raised in Japan, came back at 16, and had my mom. Well, the next part of that adventure is that Teddy, your founder's cousin, FDR, decided to round up 120,000 Japanese Americans and put them in internment camps during World War II. So my mom was born in the Poston, Arizona camp and spent the first 4 years of her life there. So I always grew up with this story of adventure and, a world bigger than our own and a world of injustice. And can we slow it down and go back to this slide, which is my parents. My dad's there. That's Prime Minister Nehru. My mom and dad met at UCLA, but they actually met in India for a program that was kind of pre-Peace Corps, where they went over to India for the State Department. So again, I had this idea of a world that was a little bit bigger than others might know. And if you go then to the next slide, that's me as a little girl in Capistrano Beach. And for those who have kids, it's just imperative. All these early experiences are completely shaping their lives and putting in ideas of adventure. And so the ocean was, I knew my place, that was going to feed my soul and feed my adventures. And so with my family, if we go to the next slide, is I think there's going to be a slide of my daughter there. She's 10 years old. We went on a trip to the Marshall Islands. That's us over Christmas this last year. We went to another legendary adventurer, Captain Martin Daly. He has an island called Barren Island in the Marshall Islands, and so he pioneered a lot of surf spots in Indonesia, and he's Australian, and a lot of other spots. But so I also have this life adventure because I have the support of my family, and I have the inspiration of my daughter, who someday might be able to join this club.
Yeah, very shortly. Very shortly, we hope. So you're in San Francisco, and have you done much surf photography up to that point?
I had done a lot in Indonesia and Japan, but I guess when I first moved there, I was just getting started, and as you mentioned, I mean, if we go back to that, I don't know what we had before that. That's me with that first water housing that I had made in Japan, and that's at Ocean Beach. And then if you go forward, that other photo is of me at Mavericks, I think, if it was just on there, yeah. So that's me with a different housing at Mavericks. And so, as you said, I go out there with my fins and swim, kind of like I played water polo in college also, so I'm kind of doing a water polo egg beater kick and holding the camera up. But Ocean Beach, if we go to the slide of the quote from Barbarian Days, maybe some of you out there have read this book that won the Pulitzer Prize. It's all about his adventures in surfing, and one of the chapters is dedicated to his time at Ocean Beach, which he describes as impossible, like trying to swim up a waterfall, as complicated a proposition as any surf spot I've seen. Had it been a book, it would have been something dauntingly difficult, continental philosophy, theoretical physics. So it is one of the most deadly beaches in the country, and actually the lifeguards don't even let you go past your ankle, like up to knee deep. They don't let you go past knee deep because the currents are just so strong there. It's a 3.5-mile stretch of beach that gets every ounce of swell that comes. You know, the swell will start in Japan and go to Hawaii and then build until it gets to California, and then it'll go down to Mexico. But when it slams against our coast, and especially where I live at Ocean Beach, there's nothing that's blocking that swell. Sometimes the Farallon Islands are blocking it, but it's just a lot of power, and then it slams into, right adjacent to Ocean Beach is the Golden Gate Bridge, which essentially acts like a river mouth, and so all of this water sucks in and out of the bay every day, and those currents are just massive and sweeping, and even when it's small, you can just be dragged like 3 miles, and you can be dragged the whole length of the beach in 30 seconds, it feels like. I mean, very quickly.
Wow.
So
here's the thing I'm looking for. You get up in the morning and you can do your laundry, you can go for a bike ride, you know, you can watch some television, or you can put your fins on and go down to Ocean Beach and go in the most dangerous water in the world. What's in your mind that goes, I'm going to go swim in an ocean that the lifeguards won't let anybody go in past their knees?
Mm-hmm. It was actually another woman, a woman named Judith Sheridan, who inspired me to go out the first time. I was at the beach, not wanting to surf, knowing I couldn't surf those waves, but thinking I could probably swim out in the waves, but not having done it before. And I had my boyfriend at the time's binoculars, and I was checking out who was out there, and I saw that someone was swimming. This woman with this orange swim cap, and I was like, I think that's a woman. And, you know, well, you can't be what you can't see, there's that, but I'm also competitive, and I'm just like, well, if she's out there, I can go out there. And so I just swam up to her and said hi, and she taught me everything I needed to know about diving under the waves, and it's total darkness there, and you have to look for the spirals of columns of water, and you have to swim through those columns of water, and all of that stuff. Yeah, she's told me that a lot of people ask her to take them out, but she said I'm the only one who's swum out and asked her what to do.
So with that, I want to get into some of the photography, some of your experiences, but I want to lay some groundwork. So let's look at this. You talked about you met this lady and she gave you some training in this area. So is there special training you actually sought out beyond that to really go out in these ways and survive it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest training I did was swimming my whole life. I think it just conditioned me physically and mentally to be tough. And then then just being in the water, I think it's really important just to be in the water as much as I can, because that's how I get to know the currents and all of that. And On top of that, I've done some apnea training with performance free diving. They do a course specific to big wave surfing on how to hold your breath, and I've taken a lifeguard kind of safety course with the Big Wave Risk Assessment Group. They're a group out of Hawaii that do trainings for lifeguards all over the world that was born out of a death at Mavericks and them realizing they didn't have a safety plan. And so now big wave surfing is very organized, and thanks to them, and people there's like protocols and systems, and we're actually going to do a training in September for Mavericks, and so those are the two main, so those are the things.
And with that, are there any certain, we'll say, personal qualities or abilities that you had to develop in yourself to be able to go out and do this?
Yeah, I think you have to develop magical thinking. Because when you see a wave that's much bigger than that's 3 times, 4 times what our ceiling is here, it's logically terrifying. And but you can't succumb to that in order to survive. You have to stay calm and just say, okay, well, just try and do what I do in smaller waves, and I'll dive under it and see what happens. And and so I'm here so far. So far so good.
Okay, well,
but I think you have to block reality. If you think in realistic terms, it's just a little too overwhelming.
Okay. Now, when you go out, is there any special gear you're wearing, safety gear, anything like that you can, if you do get in trouble, or it's going to protect you in any way? Yeah,
I have. Well, I have a really thick wetsuit, a 5'4", 3 with a hood. I'll wear gloves if it's really cold. I have, socks, thick socks also in my fins. So that keeps me afloat. And actually, Isris, I'd like to thank, who gives me my wetsuits, because they are actually extremely warm, because I need an extra layer than even the surfers do, because I'm in the water the whole time, right? And I'm going deep, which is even colder, right? So, so the wetsuit's number one. It's pretty buoyant. So if I have to dive a lot, like at Ocean Beach, I will just wear that. If I'm at Mavericks or Jaws, I will put like a impact vest, which Patagonia makes, like a vest that has like padding, so that if you fall and hit a board or hit anything, it'll protect you, and it'll also make you float up much quicker. And if it's really big, I'll wear that and an inflatable vest. So Patagonia also makes a vest that you pull. It has a cord that inflates it with air, and then it becomes this big balloon that makes you float up. So because I've had a friend that has had, I have had a friend that has had both on though, and I'm sorry, not both, had the vest and it didn't work, and then he got his ear blown out, so his equilibrium was all off and his board was ripped off. So anyhow, the only reason he survived is he had a little bit of a wetsuit on that helped him float up, because he almost blacked out. But anyhow, so now after that, everybody in the big wave community usually wears both, just as a backup kind of.
Okay, and how long are you typically out in the water when you go out?
I mean, I've been out for all day sometimes. I mean, like 8 hours, I don't know, 10 hours.
Okay.
But usually maybe like 4 hours. You were asking about the gear, and my batteries last usually like 2 hours. Depends how much I'm shooting, 2 to 4 hours. Usually like 2 hour. And
as far as your technical gear, you just have your camera in the housing. Is there anything else you have with you do you have battery backup strapped onto your waist or anything? Or
Yeah, well, so I usually will go out on a boat. I have swum out at Mavericks, but it's It's not preferable. It's like takes a really long time, and it's scary, and it's sharky. And so I'll usually go out on a boat or a ski, and I'll just leave extra batteries there, and I'll do the change. So it's semi-drive to change the batteries and everything.
Okay. And then when you're shooting with the surfers, are you orchestrating shots with them? Or are you just, I mean, I'm assuming that's like shooting at the, we'll say an Indy 500 on the track. You don't want to get run over, but you want to get the shot. So what's going through on the orchestration, and is there any, I'm assuming most surfers would love to have a great shot of them, so it's not something that there's an antagonistic relationship, but there may be, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm wondering if before we go into the surfer segment,
Sure.
since you were asking about gear and everything, I have a few, and training. There's some videos that might
Sure.
be fun for
Let's take a
people
look.
to watch. So the first would be the training. There's, this. So this is with performance free diving, and they're trying to simulate a big wave, getting tossed around in a big wave. So that's me in the middle, and then there's just a bunch of guys that are just pushing me down. And so I hold my breath for a minute, I think is what we did, and then we had 15 seconds to breathe in between, and then get tossed down again. And I think we did that 5 times, or I'm not remembering exactly, but they're wanting to try and simulate kind of a sustained and repeated getting tossed around. Now,
I'm just curious, does that give you, when you're out there getting tossed, you go, the training's coming in handy, or?
no, I mean, that's what, it's a good exercise, but even whatever that is, 8 guys pushing me down is nothing like the force of
I wouldn't
a wave
think so. Okay.
that's tossing you around. So, and then if you go to, in terms of getting out there, if we then go, I didn't know this was this long. If we then, can we go to the Mavs Mayhem? Oh, okay, we can play this. This is fine. So this is me with Andrea Muller at Jaws and Maui, and you can see there's boards that just went over there. That wave just wiped out a lineup of people, surfers, and so they've fallen off their boards. And Andrea, who's one of the 4 women in my documentary SheChange, she's also EMT, and she's picking up one of these surfers whose name is Otman Chafani. He's from Morocco. He would have gotten hit on the head with that next wave. And so I'm on the back. I was shooting photos. You saw my camera there, but I have a GoPro on the top also. So I'm just filming, this rescue. Normally, this driver would probably dump me because they don't want the extra weight, but she swam back, she skied back because she went to get the board. So the board had completely fallen off of him. The plug came out of the board completely. But she knows what she's doing, and these boards are, $1,500 or more, and so she brought him back to pick up the board. And it was quite thrilling. I was really happy to be there for this. Yeah. So you can see he's going to show the plug that came out. So it just ripped out completely because of the force of the wave.
Yeah.
And I think at the end, I just hear saying, let's do that again. Okay, and then this is at Mavericks, so you can see all the boats and so there's jet skis and boats out there. This is Paige Alms and Bianca Valenti, who are also.
I plan to shoot from the back of the
And that's me on the back of a jet ski.
in an instant.
And so, again, another big wave is coming from the outside and is about to clean up. It's a cleanup set, and it's about to hit all these guys on the head.
Rush in for a rescue.
So Frank Chiardi, who's driving me, who leads the Mavericks safety team, just gets me. And so I'm on the edge of the wave. I'm not in the impact zone, but because I'm on the shoulder there, I have to, I do a dolphin kick. So that's my GoPro on top, and I do like a dolphin kick to get myself to the safe part of that part of the wave. And then there's people caught inside. I get picked up by the ski. They have a sled on the back of the jet ski, and then the other rescue guys are going in there.
So are you actually having the boats shuttle you out and you're sort of body surfing in on the waves and they pull you back out? Is that part of the, or?
It's a combination. I'll often hire a jet ski who's also acting as my safety, so they're both getting me out there and they're keeping an eye on me while I'm swimming in case anything happens.
Now, I talk about sort of the window of danger. Is there any specific thing you're watching for? And I'm also curious about the presence of sharks, because you're actually in an area that's got a lot of great whites that are known for that, but there's a lot of other sharks in that area. But you get caught in the most powerful torrent of water we can have on the planet, which are these waves. You've got rocks and reefs in that area, and then that are all damaging. Then you've got the wildlife. Is there any specific thing you're watching for as you're doing this?
I mean, the main thing I'm watching for is the force of the wave. There's so much going on there that the last thing I'm thinking about is the men in gray suits. I know they're out there. There's been sightings. I just heard there's a horrific story of the guys waiting in the lineup at Mavericks and one guy getting pulled under. Like my friend just recently described seeing his friend disappear underwater. Him and his entire board just disappeared underwater. And then this guy popped up, looked like a ghost, was like, we're going in. He just threw himself over the wave. Everyone just threw themselves over the wave to get out, and this great white had swum by, and it was just the this great white, he said, came up, he like touched it, and then it went down, and just the force of that going down displaced him and dragged him under. Fortunately, nothing happened. But it's their home. They're out there. I try and just, say, be nice and, say a little prayer. But you're asking what at this window of danger. I mean, so I try to be on the shoulder of the wave because I actually think I'm pretty safe. I actually don't think I take very many risks in what I do because I have a child I want to go to, a husband, I want to adventure still. So I am often on the shoulder where it's usually safe on a wave like Mavericks and Point Breaks where it's breaking instead of on a sand dune beach. So at Ocean Beach, it's sand dunes that are underwater, sand dunes. And so those are shifting all the time. So the wave's moving all the time. And so that's the challenge of that place. But at Mavericks, it's a reef rock bottom. And so that's stationary. So it's breaking in the same place usually. Mm-hmm. But in that case, even if I'm on the shoulder, I'm also really paying attention to the currents, which you can find out what they're doing ahead of time. So I'll try and go out on a slack tide usually, where it's a little bit more neutral in terms of the back and forth suck. But sometimes the current will just be sucking you into the pit, into the impact zone. Sometimes it'll push you out. And if I'm feeling unsafe, I'll get out and I'll get on a boat. Okay. But if I am in the impact zone, then the window is, you just have to dive as early as possible because you want to go as deep as possible. That's I don't know if that's the right way, but that's worked so far.
That's your exit, is to get down under the wave.
So actually I feel like I'm in probably the safest place in that environment, because at the bottom, it'll often, not there necessarily, but not at Mavericks necessarily, or Jaws, but if you go deep enough at Ocean Beach, I've gone deep enough where I just am like gripping the sand, and you're in this tiny little window of darkness, and the wave, you hear the wave, smashing up against your back, but you're actually, in still water. I've been in reefs in Indonesia where you go down, and there I keep my eyes open because I can see, and I want to know where the reefs are because I've been inside like a reef cave, and it's amazing. You're in this reef cave, and there's like little tropical fish just like swimming by, and like right up above you is just like, yeah. So I don't know. I feel like I like that quiet place.
Amazing, amazing. Were there any other videos you wanted to show before we get into the relationship with the surfers?
Well, I guess in terms of how these guys get saved, like maybe we could go to the Twiggy video. So on this video, this was featured in Edge of the Earth, the HBO series. So Twiggy was in that series, and I don't know, it's not playing. Oh, there's major potty mouth here. So I'm not always swimming. So I was swimming on this swell. It was a giant swell, but Fred Pompemeyer, one of the photographers, took mercy on me. Also probably just was scared for me and picked me up. So I got on the back of his ski. No, not that one. So if you go to the Twiggy clip, I got on the back of his ski, and if you've seen 100-Foot Wave and you see Justine DuPont surfing these waves, you actually can see a little bit of me. You can see me swimming in one part, but then Fred picks me up, and then I'm on the back of his ski, and he's one of the best in the world, so he has like the best, I had the best seat in the house, for sure, and so if we play the Twiggy clip, Twiggy is his nickname. It's Grant Baker. He's a South African big wave surfer, 3-time big wave world champion.
Yeah, let's see what's going to play here.
And it might just be stuttering, I guess. So he's going for it. I have major.
Oh, God.
So that's him falling there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he just fell on the kind of worst place you can fall, right in the bowl, which means he's going straight to the bottom. And what was so scary to watch that is that immediately after this is another, well, there was another gigantic wave that stuttered past. And yeah, so you can see the other guy's just frantically paddling to the shoulder. And I still don't see him yet, but he's somewhere in that impact zone. I think there were 4 waves that came, at least 4 waves. But part of what you're doing is even though I'm not driving the ski, I'm trying to spot the surfers. You know, you're all watching out for each other and, you know, saying where people are. And so at the end there, I did see that he had come up, and yeah, he was okay in the end, but yeah, I think it just repeated, so we can stop that.
Okay. Okay, Phoebe, that one's good. So let's move into you're breaking a lot of ground here, because first of all, you're a female photographer in sort of a man's world, and you're also just in a physical world that's extremely challenging, and now you start to actually connect with other female surfers, and between your photography and the female surfers' expertise, you're starting to actually, we'll say, bring that to light to the industry, and making not only giving them opportunities in the, we'll say, the physical challenge on the waves, but actually opening up opportunities within the surfing community. So, and with that, I want to go back to that question, that relationship with the surfer.
Yeah.
And, you know, is this a copacetic, people are going, hey, you know, here, get a picture of me, or are they like, get out of my way, I'm surfing, you know?
It can be both. I think when I first started shooting at Ocean Beach, it was usually like, are you okay? Like, just paddling up to me, are you okay? But now people, I think, know who I am, and so I've also very often experienced that once there's a camera, all of a sudden, everybody wants to get their photo taken. So just like people are swarming, you know, to get their picture taken, and that can be kind of a pain. But the best is when you are going out. What I prefer most is when I'm going out with a surfer who I know well. So Bianca Valenti is a surfer that lives at Ocean Beach and surfs Mavericks regularly, and she's been one of these pioneering women that have asked for a heat at the Mavericks contest. And they were denied originally, but they used California coastal law, which protects equal access to the coast, to get their spot in the contest. And then they did the unthinkable, and they asked for equal pay. And they were also denied that, and the World Surf League, which is like the NFL of surfing, said this was impossible, because they knew they would have to, if they made this one contest equal, all of the contests in the world would have to be equal. But again, the women used California coastal law and said, well, actually, if this is on California state lands, then Governor Newsom said, actually, you have to pay these women equally. And so because of that, they created equal pay in the World Surf League, which is the first sports league in history to do so. And so I'm making a documentary called SheChange about that. And one of those main women is Bianca here, who I'm shooting right now at Ocean Beach in these photos. And she's an extremely talented surfer. This is at Waimea Bay. That's Bianca again. And so we've traveled together, Indonesia, and we try to go in the winter to Hawaii. This is at Mavericks. That's Andrea, who was driving the ski, and Sarah Gerhardt, the first woman to surf Mavericks, at the opening ceremonies for the Mavericks contest. But when you have these relationships with the surfers, you know, I describe it as dancing. This is at the first contest for women at Jaws, and that's Justine DuPont, and then that's Twiggy raising his hands. And I really like that photo because I think it symbolizes what needs to happen for change to happen, is we all have to work together. Allyship is everything. So when you know the surfer and you know how they surf well, you can anticipate where to be, when. And yeah, and this is Paige at Jaws, Paige Alms. She's the 3-time big wave world champion in Maui. This is Jaws in Maui. So yeah, it's just kind of knowing, it's anticipating where they're going to be. So I kind of describe it as a yin yang. When I'm swimming, I'm like swimming up the wave. I'm swimming up the wave, and they're swimming down it, and we try and intersect, you know, at that magic.
Do you actually coordinate? I'm going to be over here. Come in. I'm going to try to get the shot on it, or is it just?
I mean,
you know,
yeah, the waves do what the waves will do. So it's really just about being ready for it, and knowing how that surfer you work with is probably going to surf, where they're probably going to take off. It's just practice.
Okay.
Practice makes perfect.
Now, I'm trying to there was a shot of the surfer in the barrel with the Maverick radar pieces behind it. I think that was one of the first, was that one of the first photos you had in a surfing magazine of the women? What was the significance of that?
So, I mean, I guess the reason I started, people were starting to pay attention to me is because, as Finnegan noted, it's really difficult to swim out at Ocean Beach. There's very few women or men, any gender, who go out there. And so there was a slide up there of women who ride mountains, and it was from Surfer Magazine. And so I had the first, according to Matt Warshaw, who's does the Encyclopedia of Surfing. He's a surf expert and was a former editor at Surfer. This photo of Bianca was, that's Bianca Valenti again, at Ocean Beach. She was, this photo was the first time Ocean Beach was shot, this is the first time a photo of Ocean Beach from the perspective of the water was published in Surfer Magazine.
There we go.
So this was in the print issue. And so this is the, magazine of record, I think since 1963 or 65. And so there had been photos of Ocean Beach, but always from land. So this was the first time it was from water. And I mean, people just didn't really try, I don't think, also. I don't think, there's still people that, I'm not the only one who, does it. It's doable, obviously. I think people just didn't really try. And so anyhow, that's what kind of got the ball rolling. And Ocean Beach is also a good training ground for Mavericks. So this is also at Ocean Beach. And so again, I'm swimming out there. And the waves are breaking like really far out. So that's what's so wonderful in terms of adventuring. I live directly across. This is my front yard, literally. I live directly across the beach on the Great Highway in San Francisco, but I can just walk across the street and swim out, 200 yards, and I'm in the wilds of a whole
The most dangerous waters in the world. Yeah, how exciting.
Yeah, so.
Now, I'm just with that has, the tide shifts with the currents coming in and out of San Francisco Bay and whatnot. Have there been any situations you got into that you were concerned at that point, you're getting swept along and you're trying to figure out what you're going to have to do?
Yeah, I mean, and we can I think there's only a few more from Ocean Beach. you can roll through them. But the most,
Wow, that's
yeah,
incredible.
so that's so you can see the city in the background.
Yeah.
And then the rainbow, it's always cool because big waves create rainbows behind them and usually like splash. The most challenging thing for me, I think, has been the currents. And so if you stay out there for like 2 hours, even if you go out on a slack tide, let's say, and then the tide is going out, you can get sucked out to sea pretty fast. And there's ways of, swimming kind of diagonally, and there's ways of zigzagging back. But one thing I always try and do is make sure I have like an hour left of energy at the end of my session, because it can take me an hour just to swim back into shore, because even though the waves you're in theory coming in with the waves, you're just getting taken out to sea. So sometimes it takes me like an hour just to weave my way back.
Okay. So we've covered a lot of the adventure, the danger, what's going on. With that now, I'm glad to, was there anything else specifically you wanted to cover? We have your, what was it, the dive at Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah,
you did
so
the
I
open
just
dive.
thought maybe we can just quickly go through some of the photos that I have of the women. So that's the New York Times article that actually is what I think Phoebe saw and contacted me, and that's why I'm here. So thank you, Phoebe, who's running everything back there. And I think we're just going to see some, I don't know if this is going into the women. We can either do Mavs or women, it doesn't matter, but we can go pretty quickly through the series. So this is Twiggy at Mavericks. So I'm on a boat for this. So I shoot both on boats and swimming and jet skis, because the thing about swimming in a wave is you'll see in these, swimming in big waves, you'll see in a second. So this is Twiggy's wave. We can go forward. This is Pete Mel, who he's surfed there forever. He's kind of like the king of Mavericks. He was, I think, 53, 52 when he surfed this swell, and he got, this was in 2020. So I was very fortunate in that during the lockdown, I was able to, the ocean was still safe to go into, so I was able to still have these adventures 20 minutes from my house. But you can see I'm swimming for this one, and you can see the water in the foreground, and often the challenge with that is if I'm on assignment and I have to get a photo of someone, I will be on a jet ski or a ski, because that's the only way I can guarantee I'll get the shot. If I'm swimming, I miss tons of shots, because you'll be just a tiny lip of water will like go up and cover your lens. You can't, even though there's like a 60-foot wave behind it, all you see is this little lip of water. So, so that's another challenge. And that's Kai Lenny on the same swell, who is, the waterman of the world. He's absolutely incredible from Maui, and he both surfs and foils, and I think probably people know about him. And then that's Greg Long, who is another Californian, and that was last season. This one won the Wave of the Winter. And I just like the reflection on the, even though it's just this giant force, it's still like glassy and calm and, quite beautiful. So, and if we keep going, we can go. So that's Bianca. I don't know if you can see it on these bigger screens, but I just picked this one. Bianca's watching this wave detonate, but I wanted to show it. I thought people might be interested to see how, when people fall in that bowl, I don't know if you can see on the screen the leash that's taut. So, so their board is caught up in the lip, but they fall down and they're just dangling from that leash. And often that, in the rescue video, that leash can break. Sometimes they get, the surfers are the ones who are the real heroes. I don't get tossed, again, I go under. They get tossed around and down, and some people have told me even when they've had an impact vest with flotation and they've had the pull vest inflated, Mavericks will still just push them all the way down to the bottom. Yeah. So,
Wow.
But we can just keep going quickly through. That's Ian Walsh, Patagonia ambassador, also at Mavericks, and that's Colin.
The force in these, just seeing that, the force and the power in these is just overwhelming.
I mean, I think it registers on the Richter scale, apparently. So, and so again, this, you can also see the lip kind of in front of me. But this is in a pretty scary place. Like, this is, you can see people are like kicking and trying to paddle, because this is one of those outside cleanup sets, because everyone's out of position. Normally all those people would be on the shoulder, but you can see it's starting to crest and break. And ordinarily, I think I dove right after this. I would have ordinarily dove before this, but I just was like, forced myself to just take a picture before I dove, because even though I was terrified, I wanted to document it. But anyhow, that's kind of a little bit like what it looks like. And that's Bianca just looking back at the wave she caught, because it is so beautiful.
Wow.
And then you can also swim around to the left. So what you were seeing was the right side of the wave. It's breaks on both sides. So this is at sundown. It was actually a pretty small day for Mavericks and manageable. The problem with and challenge of swimming on the left is there is no shoulder, really. You just get pushed against all of the rocks there, and so I had a ski, watching me. But there's a Brazilian that body surfed this last season, so it's humans are incredible, and
That's incredible
it's very
photo.
inspiring
Yeah.
to see what he's doing. And I would like to spend more time on the left, because it's a very beautiful angle. That's also from the left, and not as many people are going over on that side. So you're getting some. I just put this in so you could kind of get a lay of the land. So that's kind of giant. So it's, I don't know, is that a soccer field, 2 soccer field, I don't know, and people just dispersed and having to figure out how to escape, and we can, that's just the end of the session. You can see the spit, the wave was barreling and he spit out, and anyhow, sundown, those are guns, so their boards are around 10 feet, 9 to 10 feet, kind of in that range, and built specifically for big waves. I think that's the last one on Mavs. And actually, this is Golden Gate, but we might as well just go through the women photos, if we could go there, and then what I will get to. Maybe we can go to the beginning, but that's Moana Wong. That's Bianca at Ocean Beach. We can go to the next. And I guess we saw some of these. Bianca at Ocean Beach. Next, Bianca at Waimea. I think we've seen that. This is her taking off at in Puerto Escondido, Zicatela Beach. And this is Moana Wong. She's a Hawaiian that is making a big splash in the surfing world. This was the first time women were invited to surf at the Dahui surf contest at Pipeline, and that was 2 years ago. And so this is her. Moana is a barrel queen. She's the queen of Pipeline, although if you've seen Surf Girls Hawaii, which is a series out on Amazon, she says no one's the queen out there. The ocean is the queen, which I love that. So that's Moana again. And so the first time I shot Pipeline was 26 years ago, and I was the same age as Moana is here, and there were very few women surfing Pipeline, certainly nobody surfing it like Moana did. So in this session, I'm again swimming out on the shoulder, and I was tears were streaming down my face, because I had waited a long time to see these waves, to see Moana, for Moana to show up. That's Moana taking off on the wave of the winter last season. I actually wasn't in the water on this because, again, I think I'm pretty safe, and I don't shoot regularly at Pipeline, and it was a massive swell, and I just was, I had been swimming for like 8 hours a day and days in a row, and I'm 50 years old, so I was tired, and so I just like was very happy to just kick it on shore for this one, and I was happy to at least see Moana's incredible wave. And then these are my 4 heroines. She Rose, Kiala Kennelly, Paige Alms, Andrea Muller, and Bianca Valenti, and this is at the paddle out for the Eddie I. Cow Big Wave Contest in Waimea and Oahu, the North Shore, and the women surfed. This is the opening ceremony part, but the women surfed the Eddie contest this past winter for the first time, and that contest's history, and that's probably where my film, my documentary is going to end, because the Mavericks contest was canceled. So that's a longer story, but I think that might be the end of these. Yeah.
Oh, what a shot.
It's Bianca at Ocean Beach. And then what I thought we could just also dabble in is that this idea of adventure right in my backyard. I'm really fortunate in Northern California. There's lots of options, you know, mountain and water, and I have the one right in front of my house, but I've just, for whatever reason, I've had, the Golden Gate Bridge is obviously iconic, but it's been the kind of starting point of a lot of other people's adventures. So again, I focus on that, just that surface of the water, because I'm actually terrified of heights, and so I just stay at sea level. But if we go to the this is Kat Breed. She's a long distance ocean swimmer. She was a Cal swimmer, and you can see we're under the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's like 4 in the morning because she's about to dive. And she dove in the water at Golden Gate Bridge, and she was attempting to swim from Golden Gate Bridge to Mavericks in Half Moon Bay. So I got in the water here. This is Devil's, oh, I'm sorry, this is, well, anyhow, it doesn't matter. If you know anything about the dynamics of the ocean, there's rocks there. This is a very sharky area. This actually, I just got in here for a little bit, and I did not feel comfortable being in this water. But the rules of open ocean swimming is you can't get a certain distance from them, so I was kind of far from her, but you can go to so she had to have a follow boat. But she's just
And this
incredible.
is a distance of what,
27 miles.
27 miles to swim. And again, in some of the roughest.
And so she's getting, you know, there's kayaks that also are next to her as safety and then have food. So she's just eating like a goo thing. She just has some food along the way. And she did it. You can see the bulb of where Mavericks is. So she made it in 12 hours, and I'm not going to remember the exact minutes, but she's a beast. She just is absolutely incredible. So that was really exciting. She also is a surfer and invited me to document this, and so this was in the Chronicle. And I think that's it. I don't have her. And then this is another big adventurer, Chris Burdish. He's from South Africa. He won the Mavericks contest in 2010, and then he has, what's he done? He's he's supped across the Atlantic, and this is Jeff Clark driving the boat, and then you can see Chris in the back. This is him testing out this wing foil. So he was practicing. This thing is actually a foil, and he's wing foiling, so, you know, using the wind kind of, windsurfing kind of thing, and he did that in the Pacific, and so this was just him testing out that rig under the Golden Gate Bridge. So another Golden Gate Bridge adventure. And then that's me. Actually, this is Jeff Clark took that picture, and this is actually the one time
we were assigned to a high altitude base.
I don't know what that is, but
base,
this was the one. I don't know where.
No, I'm not sure what that is. I'll get turned off.
But
in a
anyhow,
second.
that photo of me was you're under the Golden Gate Bridge is a very vulnerable place to be because of all the ships and everything. That was the one time I was actually fearing for my life because Chris had sailed off this way, and Jeff was like off the other way, and I was just there under the Golden Gate Bridge, and they had nobody. They didn't have eyes on me, and I was like, this might be it. Like, this might be how I go. But I didn't. I got to smile for the camera there.
Oh, good. Well,
but I think the last adventure I want to show and end with is this. The Alexei Molchanov, he's a world record holder and has he has every world record there can be for free diving. He's dove to, over 400 feet. I was just looking, 430 feet on one breath, unassisted. So he dove under the Golden Gate Bridge, and this free diving group in San Francisco, that's him in the gold. I was shooting some photos, but I also had the GoPro on top of my camera. That's him breathing up. He's taking that one big breath, and then he's going down. And so this is what the visibility is for the water I swim in. That's what it looked like for about 2.5 minutes. And this is him, checking the depth. So he's feeling, I can explain the rig after this video, but so he's feeling to see if he feels the tension of Alexei coming up. And then this rig is going underwater. As Alexei's coming up, the whole flotation that he's supposed to be pulling up on goes like 10 feet underwater. And that's me holding on for dear life because the current was insane. And then I'm like, he's coming up, and I don't want to miss the shot, as well as don't want to, die. So I'm holding on to this. Okay, then it comes up, and then Alexei comes up.
And how deep did he go?
It's about to, I think I wrote it on this one. So you can see, so it was 57.8 meters, 2 minutes and 31 seconds.
Wow, wow.
So he thought it was more like, twice that depth because he got swept. So so this San Francisco Diving Club, there's no, are there any free divers here? Okay, yeah, what's the base called? That like home base thing that is usually permanent and moored? No, it's like, it's an anchor. Well, it's usually like permanent and moored to the bottom of the ocean, right? There's no place to do that in San Francisco, and the water is so dark and cold, but this club has figured out a temporary way where they have a SUP longboard that they paddle out with boulders that they put ropes on, and then they drop the boulders down to anchor themselves, and then they have that little yellow buoy where the divers go off of. And anyhow, so they dive and practice under the Golden Gate Bridge because that's where it's the deepest in the bay, but nobody has thought to go to 60 meters.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Incredible adventures outside your back door. I just want to make mention to the audience that you're doing a documentary, SheChange, on the whole women's surfer movement that you were involved in, and that's also been picked up by Charlize Theron's production company, and she's making a feature film out of that as well. So congratulations to that, and making that impact and getting that type of exposure.
Thank you.
I think it's fantastic.
Still in process, and I'm still fundraising for it. So if anyone has any contacts or connections, I'm here to listen.
Excellent, excellent. Well, listen, at this point, we'd like to open this up to questions from the audience. And I think Raymond's going to grab the mic here. We'll pass it around. We are on YouTube, so we want to make sure that you ask the question into the microphone.
And the film, I didn't show the trailer because the video is stuttering and I'm not, but SheChange, the film, it's called like SheChange. These women are creating a sea change, but I use SheChange. SheChange the film, S-H-E, changethefilm.com, and you'll see more about the film, and you can see the trailer there.
So questions, comments from anyone? There we go.
Yeah, I've been crushed a lot on the waves. How do you do that? And have you ever had really close calls where you said you're not going to make it?
Yeah, I think, well, closest, or I guess the scariest, was two seasons ago. Two seasons ago. It was a big day, and I wanted to test out. Usually at Ocean Beach, I don't wear flotation because you need to be diving all the time, but it was so big that nobody else was out, so I was just like, I put on a helmet. I rarely wear a helmet, but I put on a helmet, and I put on the flotation because I was like, if anything happens, at least I'll be floating. But it was the worst. I mean, it was a good lesson because the problem with that is you can't dive deep enough soon enough with that flotation. You're just like kind of stuck on the top, right, as the wave's coming in. So I just got blasted by this wave, and I've never let go. The camera itself has a handle, and you know, it's a watertight housing. Mine's out of carbon fiber, and then it has a handle, and it also then has a leash. So I've never had to test that leash. I always am holding on tight, but in this case, I just went down to the bottom. The camera hit my head. Thank God I was wearing a helmet, because it just banged my head. Then it banged my leg, and then luckily the leash worked. I know there's this guy that shoots at ship sterns in Australia that wears 2 leashes for that reason. But that was just like, yeah, I mean, but it's also kind of fun. Like, you're kind of like, yeah, you survive it, and you're like, oh, well, that was kind of fun. Like, I don't know. You have to love the wipeouts, I think, to do surf to surf.
Hi, nice job.
Thank you.
I wanted to say, in my career, I had the opportunity to meet Brock Little.
Oh,
and I
great.
worked with him for a little bit, and he was there when Mark Fu passed. And I asked him point blank, why don't you guys just wear a couple spare airs on your breast? And why wouldn't you? I mean, you can have all the flotility you want by your wetsuit and have the safety of having a spare air.
Do you mean one that you would breathe?
Yes, in case you get crunched, like Mark Fu was, you could just pull down and grab that. I think his leash got caught on the bottom, and that's why he passed. But nonetheless, why not take the safety? And I asked Brock Little this very question, and he said it's because of ego. He was very, very humble, and he was very honest. Why wouldn't you wear something like that in that situation?
Well, I do. I mean, so are you talking about the vests that inflate, or just actually a canister of oxygen?
A canister of oxygen for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think there is a reason not associated with ego. From what I understand, is just it would be hard. You know, you're in the water there, and I think you would swallow water if you tried to do that. But I don't know. It might be something that hasn't been explored fully. You know, the pull vests happened when Shane Dorian got stuck on the bottom and, nearly lost his life at Mavericks also. And he started working with avalanche, people that were, I guess, I don't ski, or I do ski, but not in avalanche conditions. And I guess it's the same technology that, snowboarders, mountain people are using, which is also where they use that air, right? But have you used that air like scuba diving and stuff? Have you?
Well, it was kind of a requirement where I worked to have something like that on your person in order to help others.
Okay, underwater?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Well, you also have to, how big is the canister of air?
About the size of it.
Well, that actually sounds like something, anybody want to help me invent that for me? Because that sounds like a pretty good idea.
They exist.
They
and
do?
you'd be in a different world as far as safety.
Yeah, I just think that, at least for the surfers, like for me, I can see maybe having the time, because as you saw, like I'm like, okay, I'm diving under, and there's like some time involved, at least in an ideal situation. But with the surfers, I do surf myself, and you're just getting so tossed around that I think it'd be hard to keep those canisters on your body, but I think it'd be even harder to use it. Like even though I don't know though, even though you're getting tossed around. I mean, sorry, even though you're down, you're just getting tossed around the entire time you're in a train wreck. You know?
I understand that, but when it comes to your air, and you knew that device was at your disposal,
Yeah.
you would just grab it and put it in your mouth and have a nice, clean, fresh breath of air.
Yeah.
Consider it.
Yeah.
Are you going to
definitely.
continue this profession?
Yeah, I'm going to do it as long as I can.
Good for you.
Yeah, but okay, I will look into it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can get it at any scuba shop or what?
Pretty
Where do I
much,
get those?
pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Sachi. I have a question on your view on drones for surfing photography. So my friend who broke his hip on a reef in Indonesia started doing this photography, and he uses drones to capture that. What's your view on drones? Is that cheating, or can you get as good a shot, or what do you think on that? Because he's got a YouTube and he does the drone thing. And
I love drones. I think drones are incredible. There's a guy named Tucker Wooding who's just doing absolutely amazing follow cam angles, views that would never be possible otherwise. I would do it. I actually, in the back of my mind, when you asked how long I'm going to do this, if I can't do it anymore physically, I would do the drone. I hate being on shore, but I think the drone is kind of the next best thing, because at least you're out there and you're kind of seeing, next to the action, as opposed to watching from far away. I just feel so far removed when I'm on shore. But drones are incredible.
do you have a catalog of work that's available to be viewed from the general public, or is that just?
I should, but despite this deep passion for filmmaking and water photography, I pay the bills as a professor of multimedia journalism at San Francisco State. So I don't have time to, I haven't had time yet to make that website. Maybe when I'm, no longer shooting and droning, I will have time. But you can see most of my work at my Instagram, which is at SeaSachi, SeaSachi.
Okay, thank you.
So you showed the rescue of the Italian fellow on the surface.
Moroccan.
Oh, Moroccan, sorry. So in a case like that, how far do you tow him? Where do you take him? Did he get right back on? Because it seems like his leash fell off or something or other.
Yeah, so Andrea was using this loop that he grabbed onto. So there were a bunch of drivers, rescue people there, and they're looking. There's the heads are tiny when they pop up, and so she saw him, signaled, yelled at him to grab on. He grabbed on. He went on this sled. There's these sleds on the back of the ski that have handles, and so usually if you have a surfboard, you put both the surfboard and you on there, but his surfboard had ripped off, so that's why she drove him back into the impact zone to pick up the board. And then after that, she just drove him back to the side, and he was with a group of friends that also had their own skis. So we're all in the same general vicinity of
So
the
in that case,
wave.
you'd have to go back into shore to repair that thing or get another board? Or what?
Well, at Jaws, it's just a wall of rocks, so that board would have been gone if she didn't bring him back to
Would
pick it
he
up.
continue to surf without that or not?
Well, you could go and borrow a board. A lot of people, if you break a board, there's enough people that bring more than one board out there, like on a boat, that if your friend will let you borrow it, you can borrow another board.
But without the sheet or the leash?
Oh, no, without the leash, no.
Okay.
Yeah. And also the leash for the surfers is another safety mechanism. So when they are doing what's called tombstoning and they're pushed all the way at the bottom, the board is completely upright like a tombstone, and that's because that leash is completely, perpendicular. And so often you don't know what's up and down, especially if your ear has popped, which happens on more than one occasion. So they'll climb the leash because they know that's up.
So thank you for your presentation. So in
Thank
your
you for coming.
in your imagination of the future, what would you be shooting and where?
In the imagination of the future, I would be shooting deeper. I'd be shooting inside the barrel of one of these big waves. So I would like to just get a little deeper and a little. I'd like that shot of Bianca with the green wave surrounding her. Like, that's a big wave, but I'd really like to be more in a big wave barrel.
In the green room.
In the green room, yeah.
Okay, great. Any other questions? We got one more in the back there. Okay.
Thanks so much for being here. I'm still trying to understand like the preparation it takes to do this kind of thing. Like you were showing yourself being pushed around in a pool. Like how much do you swim and like what do your workouts consist of? And then when you dive under a wave, I've never dove under a wave like that big, but you have to hold your breath for a while, I imagine. How long do you have to hold your breath? How big are these waves that you're diving under? And then once you come up, what happens when there's another wave, the same size or bigger, that you have to go under? I'm just trying to wrap my mind around this.
Yeah. Well, so waves are measured in height and like the fetch, the distance between each wave, period, thank you. And so for big wave swells, usually the longest period between waves will be 20 seconds. So in theory, in that exercise that I was doing where they were pushing me around for a minute, in theory, it's rare to get a 3-wave hold down. That would be 3 20-second intervals. So the nice thing about that kind of training is that like you do the math and you hold your breath and you're like, okay, maybe diving under one of these waves for 20 seconds isn't as scary as it seems if I can hold my breath and do this for a minute, or 4 minutes is what a lot of the apnea classes will build you up to. But when you're diving under, I actually should know this for these kind of talks, how deep I'm diving, but these are deep water waves. So I'm diving pretty deep, and sometimes, yeah, you come up and there's another wave, and so you just dive again. Another part of the apnea training, and then just like cardio, doing a lot of cardio will help in just like calming your resting heart rate or panicked heart rate, or just like help you stay a little calmer in those situations. And it's also like sprinting kind of activity, right? You're like stagnant and just sitting there, and then all of a sudden you have to like sprint for that. It feels like a sprint kind of when you're diving under and coming back up. Yeah, did I answer that question? Just in terms of training?
How much are you swimming daily? And how? What are your workouts like?
Yeah, I should be training more, to be perfectly honest. But when I'm training the way I want to, I'm doing some cardio 3 times a week. I'm doing weights or resistance training, interval training with dumbbells and bands and that kind of stuff. And then I'm just out in the water. I mean, really, I think for me, the best training, at least I've personally think, is just being in the element, is just swimming out there and just being comfortable in that water. And then, the water specific to my beach, and that's why I've been swimming there now for 20 years, and so I have a really good understanding of how those currents move around. And like I mentioned, I go to shoot at Waimea or Pipeline. I don't push myself as hard because I just don't know it as well and don't have that same confidence. But also a lot of confidence comes from, I was a competitive swimmer from 7 to 20, so that was 2 hours of swimming every day for 6 days a week. Like, I know I have a base level of fitness and endurance that it's, mental as much as physical. Like, I go in the water knowing that I've been getting to know this ocean that I'm swimming around, for 20 years. I swam every day before that for 20 years, so it's just kind of like that big wave comes and you're scared, but then I just, try and calm down and like remind myself that no, like I'm ready for this.
We have another, okay, last question here, and we'll wrap it up.
So waves come in sets, I guess. Can you semi-predict in each of these locations these different wave patterns at all? Is that used?
Yeah, I mean, so Surfline is like the big weather forecasting site, and Storm Surf. Oh gosh, I'm just forgetting last names here, but anyhow, Surfline, yeah, it used to be, does anybody, what's Sean? Collins. Thank you, Collins. Sean Collins, I did an interview with him, and he's kind of the godfather of this surf forecasting, and he used to just sit on his roof and like watch the waves and take notes about how long it was in between sets, and he just wrote notebooks, reams of notebooks, and then figuring out if there was a pattern there, and then there was, and so now there's this surf forecasting that has emerged that is pretty darn accurate. So these big wave surfers that are well funded, they can be watching, storms brewing all around the world, and they know the topography all around the world, and so they know if a certain swell direction is hitting a certain way and the wind is a certain way, that like this spot is going to be where I'm going to fly to, and the surf forecasting can predict. They can, like 2 weeks out, you can kind of know something's brewing. A week, you have a better idea, and then usually it's like 48 hours before is when you make a call because you need time to fly there and hopefully get some sleep. But I would say it's incredibly accurate. It's also, the Surfline tagline is "Know before you go." So it's changed surfing completely, the surf forecasting. It's also Mother Nature. So it can also just you can get skunked and nothing, the waves are small and you just come back to try another day.
But once they do come in big, they still know there's going to be a set of 3, then there's going to be a lag, and there's going to be another 5, or that kind of thing?
Yeah, when I go out like swimming at Mavericks, I will usually ask guys that are coming in, like how many waves in a set, because I want to know like what I'm up against. And especially if you're surfing, you want to know that number, because you don't want to take, if these are like 10 wave sets, you don't want to take the first one, because if you fall, you're going to have 9 more waves on your head. So, there is a little bit of calculation there in terms of knowing how many waves in a set and all of that.
Okay, great. Sachi Cunningham, thank you very much for sharing this evening with us.
Thank you.
At the Adventures Club, incredible stories, incredible, photos, videos that you brought. Truly experiencing life off the beaten path, and we hope that you will come back again and join us for another presentation at some point.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
There you go. Just sit tight. Sit tight.
Who's doing that?
So sit tight.